Hi Remco, how are you?
Good. Hi Miriam.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Also nice to meet you and see how similar minds maybe may talk about innovation in university.
Yeah.
How are you yourself an innovator?
I'm not sure whether I am. I just use whatever is available. I guess I feel a bit like Claude Lévi-Strauss and his bricolage. You just take what's available and you make do with that, which is a lot of fun, which sometimes puts me out of the mainstream with my colleagues, I have noticed. But it helps me to tell what I want to tell to the people I want to tell it to. Audiences are not static, they change, they can be different. Whatever you want to tell them may be different, and the medium sometimes really has to change in order for you to be able to tell whatever you want to tell most efficiently or effectively.
Can you give an example where you went out of the box, so to say, as you also say your colleagues do not always understand, but is there an example of?
Well, I guess I use different formats. One I particularly like myself, which is perhaps not the best reason to do it, but it turns out to work also, is podcasting. We've been making a podcast for the past 2.5 years on Korean affairs, taken broadly, which is really quite different from the podcast I used to make, I still make for my students. I tend to like making them, but they may be a bit dryish, and they're very much on topic. And the podcast I make with a professional team, a professional host, Annette van Soest, is much more, in a way, much more informal. It's not academic in its format, but the information in it certainly is. I mean, it's informed by what I do, by the research I do, the classes I teach. And the first, I remember the reactions of some of my colleagues after the first one aired. It's like, oh, how quaint. Is this what people do nowadays? I mean, what's wrong with a lecture, an old-fashioned lecture? Right? There's nothing wrong with an old-fashioned lecture. Actually, I like giving old-fashioned lectures. I just don't think it's the be-all and end-all of teaching, or and that's not even teaching, it's, I guess, getting your message across, initiating a dialogue or conversation is probably a better word. And it's one of the things I particularly like about how things are being done now, that this may be a podcast or when you give a lecture somewhere, but it doesn't stop there. There's social media to tie everything together, to nuance, to receive critique, to receive comments, to give comments yourself. So I would find it hard to single out one particular way of doing this. It's the whole complex of communication means we have at our disposal. Since I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, and you discovered this while doing, I suppose.
Yeah, I've no formal training, and the only reason why the podcast is as sleek as it is because I work together with people who actually know what they're doing. That makes a bit difference. Now I tinker a lot. I did tape podcasts myself for my students, but I mean, there's a really big difference there. But even then, if you do those kind of things, you're not doing what students necessarily would expect you to do, which may be a bonus. Well, you don't have to throw them off the deep end, but you can surprise them. So I've tried vlogs, I've tried podcasts, I've tried blogging. Vlogs, I think, are not for me. The click isn't there. I'm not particularly good at doing it. I think I'm slightly better or less bad at doing a podcast. Blogging is fine, so it's all those kinds of things, I guess.
Yes, and do you think this needs to be part of university curricula today?
Yes, I would think so, because we do train our students how to properly write an academic essay. We do train them how to give a proper academic presentation. And I think we should continue to do that. So this is not instead of those time-tested methods of conveying information, but we've been given new opportunities, new means by developing technology and society. I think we should capitalize on them because they. One big reason, I guess, for me to do this is because I get a chance to leave behind, to a certain extent, my academic persona, which is, it's sad to say, can actually harm the message you're trying to convey to people, especially to the general public, because before you know it, you're the stuffy professor who doesn't really know real life and who sits there in his ivory tower reading books and pronouncing about this or that. Of course, university isn't like that. I wonder if it has ever been, but I've not known it to be like that. But the image is there, and if you proactively engage in different media, I think that really helps engaging other people, engaging people who would normally perhaps not listen to you.
Is there a special kind of urge for the humanities? I mean, the humanities is often seen as really academic and out there, not really in society. Is there an urge for humanities to do this?
I would definitely say so. It's extremely urgent. And again, it's the image. I think it's the wrong image, a stereotype of what humanities are supposed to do that is blocking the very urgent messages that my colleagues are putting out there on how to deal with each other, with society, on how to make sense of the environment you find yourself in. The example I always give, being a Korean studies specialist by training, is North Korea. It's the only country I know without functioning humanities field. It doesn't exist anymore. They used to have it, and it's now all propaganda. That's the choice you make if you do away with humanities. I think a society that is more or less in balance and that is more or less equipped to face the challenges that inevitably arise, yes, it will have engineers, definitely, and it will have doctors. It will also have humanities scholars. They're the ones who study the human condition. They can tell you what works and what doesn't work, or how people deal with the threats that are coming at them. And it's not just within a society; it's also in an international context. It's important to know what's out there. It's important to know how other people think, how they may react in situations you also face. Perhaps we can learn from them. They can learn from us. Usually, it's a dynamic. It's not a one-way traffic. It's not about different places now only. It's also different places then. So it's also the historical dimension that is extremely important here. We tend to not really pay much attention to that, thinking that, well, if climate change is here, we'll just build bigger dikes. Not against building bigger dikes, but I would also be in favor of thinking what this does to about our relationship with the environment, for example. What this will do, worldwide global migration will probably change drastically on account of climate change. It already has been changing on account of that. These are typically topics that humanities scholars deal with on a daily basis. It's extremely important to get that message out there.
And to get it out, students need to be trained to get it out.
And to get it out, students need to be trained to get it out. Yes, there are always students there are always people who can do this. No training, and they're fine. Most of us, including me, we need the training, and then we can do it. So it's extremely important to pay attention to these kind of skills in 21st century academic training.
And that's what we will do today, no?
That's exactly what we will do today. We're doing our bit to make the world a bit better. Sounds well, and I'm serious here. It sounds a bit out there, but that's exactly what humanities scholars bit by bit do. All scholars, I guess.